sharing the screen right now.
Om Nicho Nichanam Chetanas Chetananam Eko Bahunam Yo Vidadati Kaman Tamatmastam Yenu Pashanti Diraha Tesham Shanti Shashvati Netaresham Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. That one, the eternal among non-eternal things, the intelligence of the most intelligent ones, who, though ever one, nevertheless fulfills the desires of the many. The wise ones realize that one as dwelling in their very self. To them belong peace, and to none else. Om peace, peace, peace. Om Vedanta Siddhanta Nirukti Resha Brahmaiva Jivaham Sakalam Jagatcha Akanda Rupa Stiti Reva Moksho Brahma Vitye Shrutayaha Pramanam. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. It is the sure and certain conclusion of the Vedanta that all is Brahman. Time, space, living beings, and the world. Living in constant recognition of this fact is what is called enlightenment. Brahman is pure and perfect and one without a second. And the revealed scriptures are the apt and final proof of this fact. Om peace, peace, peace. Om Sahana, Om Sahana Vavatu, Sahana Bhunaktu, Sahaviryam Karvavahai, Tejasvi Navaditamastu Ma Vidveshavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May Brahman, the reality, protect us. May Brahman sustain us. May Brahman illumine our thinking process. May we not find fault with each other, with the teachings or with the world, and may what we study be a source of inspiration to us eternally. Om peace, peace, peace. May peace be unto us, may peace be unto all. Om Hari Om. Yes, and it is the sure and certain proof of the fact that we are all sitting here today to study the Svetashvatara Upanisad. San Francisco is just beginning the 4th chapter, and if you've been at the series of classes over the last 3 or 4 years that we've taken up this scripture, we have made it through those 4 chapters and looked at a lot of different slokas which reveal to us a lot of different teachings in the Vedanta. Vedanta is a very wide term nowadays, especially if you call it the Neo-Vedanta or the New Vedanta, which is of the type that Vivekananda and other very active monastics brought to the world at the behest of Sri Ramakrishna, whose birthday is this week, and solar and lunar birthdays are falling very close to this week. We'll have our celebration for him in San Francisco Ashram tonight and in Portland Ashram next Saturday night. And we'll consider ourselves very fortunate to have been able to even know a little bit about such a great soul as Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, as sometimes as we even like to just sing about him. If we wanted to start off musically, we could sing Aji Premanande Manrigaha Ramakrishna Nam, Aji Premanande Manrigaha Ramakrishna Nam, Kaha Ramakrishna Nam, Japa Ramakrishna Nam, Nam Shude Paniraha Vataya Biram, Aji Premanande Manrigaha Ramakrishna Nam. For the attainment of the highest bliss, the song says, sing Ramakrishna's name, chant Ramakrishna's praises, drink the nectar of his name, drenched in divine love. So those of us who have met Sri Ramakrishna, who lived in the physical form in the 1800s, and whose subtle form is still with us, he promised another 200 or 300 years or so after his passing that he would be in the subtle form and helping the earth, lifting the curtain of Maya, sort of like Atlas keeping the world up, and until that heavy curtain inevitably falls at the end of every descent of an avatar's coming or his presence on earth. So we chant his name, drink the nectar of that name, and do numerous repetitions of his mantra, which has been given to us by our gurus, and many, many other songs we sing in honor of him, to keep our mind elevated and off the difficult propositions and trials and tribulations of earthly life, and particularly keep ourselves away from mere worldly life and try and live a dharmic life or spiritual life. You have those choices. You could fall into the clutches of Maya and live a mere worldly life, which could even become an adharmic life, or a life of evil doings, as we know is possible on earth. Or you can try for intellectual life, which is a step up, and that's good because the mother of wisdom is behind the intellect, as we've been talking about, Mother Saraswati. So even through mere intellectualism, one will be led towards, hopefully towards the source of all intelligence. And it's a good doorway into what we call dharma, which is beyond moral life. There's also moral and ethical life, which is basic religious life, conventional religious life, you might say. But then you've got this potential in you to seek dharmic life. That is the life that goes beyond just mere commandments and begins to cut yourself in the image of the great ones, as Christ said. So we cut ourselves in the image through studying the Dharma, drenching our mind in Dharma. There's we chant Ramakrishna's name and we douse ourselves, drench ourselves in the nectar of his name all the time. But his name is Dharma, really. It's all those teachings that flowed out of him. And it's a way of keeping your mind up and above the press of Maya and worldliness and so forth. All the heaviness and weights, the 6 passions, the 8 fetters, the 5 kleshas, the 9 antarayas. If I were to list them all, you'd get kind of depressed. See? Also, I'll just call them by their basic groupings. Passions, fetters, kleshas, which means impediments, and antaryayas, which means barriers in the mind and in the body too. You have barriers at the body level, at the mind level, at the intellectual level, at the psychological level, at the spiritual level. Also at the pranic level, where your energy flows, there are blockages called granthis, or knots in Sanskrit. So all of these blockages are considerable problems for a person. We talk about expressing oneself. You can't have expression without limitation, you know. People talk about unlimited expression. That's a misnomer. Expression only happens when you limit yourself, because Brahman is unlimited, isn't it? So its name is beyond impression, or beyond expression. See, it's inexpressible, and so if you're going to go to the non-dual state, you're not going to be finding anything expressed there. Brahman doesn't express itself. It's transcendent of expression. So in order to express yourself, you have to take on limitation, which means tirodhana. In Shaivism, you see this body, mind, is a limitation put over the limitless Brahman. So your form, all your forms are limitations over a formless backdrop, sort of like an empty blackboard, and then you paint on it, you see, or write on it, an empty piece of paper, and you draw on it. So that means lack of expression is not a negative thing, for one thing. They call it emptiness sometimes in Buddhism, and neti in Vedanta. So it's good if you can just be with your emptiness inside. It's actually even a way out of depression. If you say, oh, I'm depressed and I feel empty, well then meditate on emptiness. Arjuna did in the first chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. He had his depression yoga for one chapter, and he found a teacher and found his way out. He got those words of Dharma coming at him, and then he grew. See, so expression all happens in the realm of limitation. And when you get to the limitless, there's no expression there. It's all one inexpressible light. So that great master then, Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, is really, his name is Dharma, his name is teachings. And he could express teachings without end, just start talking and just go on and on and on, connecting things ad infinitum throughout days and days of discourse if you were there to listen to it. And that's what he did. He pretty much sat in the temple of Dakshineshwar, or Kali Temple in Calcutta, and opened the doors of his room and began expressing the Dharma. And people would come and listen and take what they could and go away and come listen and take what they could, and so forth, to their capacity. Some of them became very enamored of the Dharma and became dharmis. They became actual people committed to the Dharma, and they decided they wanted to major in that, as if life was a great college, and you could either major in worldly life or intellectualism or sin or evil, or you could major in, there's a lot of topics out there in the world you can major in, but they decided to major in the Dharma. See, and therefore the great disciples of Ramakrishna, like the great apostles of Christ and the noble eight of Buddha and so forth, they Brahmanandam Shivam Shantam Premarupam Niranjanam Yogi Shamad Bhutam Nityam Akandadvaita Lakshinam Vijnanam Trigunatitam Turyabeda Samgitam Subodham Shardam Chaiva Viveka Sashi Bhushanam. You probably heard a lot of words in there that you recognize. That's because that's the name of the 16 direct apostles. It's a chant that puts all the 16 names of the 16 direct apostles together in one sloka. So you can memorize that and chant that, and as you do, call their presence into your atmosphere. before you start into work, before you start to school, before you start into any endeavor, you proclaim that. Because those are the name of 16 people who majored in Dharma and who attained the goal of human existence in recent life, in 1900s, see, late 1800s, early 1900s. And we have pictures of them downstairs in our shrine on the wall. You see all of them together with some other lay disciples and so forth, who also measured in the Dharma. So if you start singing something like Gaji Premanande Manrega Ramakrishna Nam, Ramakrishna's name is the very name for Dharma itself. It's the very name for teachings. It's the very name for intelligence. It's the very name for bliss. Because you get bliss after clearing your mind of ignorance through intelligence. And then bliss just naturally is residing there, you see, and truth then is there. Where rolls the stream of knowledge and truth, and the bliss that follows both, is what the poem says by Swami Vivekananda. Song of the Sannyasin, very first verse. Where rolled the stream of knowledge, truth, and the bliss that follows both. So then you might want to take up a regimen like I have of doing so many repetitions of the mala each morning. See, 108, that's what my teacher told me to do. But then I'm going to increase it. My number next week is going to be 568, you see. Or 564. 5 times 108. You see, I'll do that every morning with pure attention on my ideal, Ramakrishna. Nothing will distract me. And for the 15 or 20 minutes or half hour that takes to do, I'll be perfectly in tune with God, and I'll try and take that out of the shrine room in the morning with me when I go to school, when I go to work, when I go into the world, and keep that. And if I fail at that, then I'll come back again the next day and do another 564 and put myself in concentration again and try it the next day to keep it throughout the day. You never lose it till I never lose that. The feet of the Lord, they call in my tradition, you see. The feet of the Lord. So when you're studying a great scripture like the Svetashvatara Upanisad, you're looking at a seer in Svetashvatara whose wisdom has lasted for thousands of years. It's a very rare thing for someone's work to last that long. You might have noticed the work of 99% of humanity just goes by the wayside like water under the bridge, you see. And we were talking yesterday at breakfast and at dinner and so forth about how to do work in the world so that it doesn't impede you. You don't accrue karma with it, and you can go from job to job or from occupation to occupation, from day to day, with your mind free of the desire for fruits of action, and just do the work as meticulously as you can. You've become, it's the same as becoming a dharmi. You know, see, if you say, I'm going to take the Dharma as my major, then I'm going to have to know how to work the Dharma. My teacher, my guru, was mowing the lawn once, the lawnmower, and he had me put the lawnmower in the car afterwards, you see. So it was one of these ones that had a folding handle. So I folded the handle, and it wouldn't fold, see. So I forced it, and it broke these 2 little plastic tabs down there that you're supposed to, if you're smart, like you should be, you should have pushed the tabs, if you had 3 hands, see, push the tabs at the same time, and then folded it back. So then the tabs fell down there, and I picked them up, and right about that time my teacher looked at me, and I expected a scolding for breaking this lawnmower. And he usually did scold at occasions like that. This is a matter of course. But instead he looked at me and kind of smiled, and he said, that's a precision instrument. You have to know how to work a precision instrument. Then the classic few seconds of silence, and then Vedanta too is a precision instrument. You have to know how to work it. So he turned the whole thing, of course, this worldly situation, into a teaching about how to be very careful how to apply the teachings that you learn from the Dharma, from the Guru, and work them into your life, implement them into your life. So whether you're talking about studying the Svetashvatara Upanisad, or whether you're talking about doing mantra in the morning with the name of a great soul on your lips, and the image of him in your heart, whatever the area of Dharma you're working in. And it might as well all include Dharmic life too. Every job you take it on in the Dharma. Every job you seek, take it on in the Dharma. Every job you give it up because it's not in the Dharma. As one person told me yesterday, I had to quit that job because they were dishonest, you see, doing dishonest things. So everything has to be measured by that graduation of Dharma, Adharma. It's a twofold, Viveka and Aviveka, the discrimination between what's real and what's unreal, or what's beneficial and what's not. So with those words, we can start into chapter 4, which is where we ended up last time on my last visit here about 3.5 months ago. It's been a long absence that I've been away from the West Coast, and I hope you've been watching the live streaming classes from Hawaii that we've been broadcasting, as this is also live streamed today to our audience. And you'll know that then all the teachings that have been being given in Hawaii, we've just finished the Shakta Advaitavada series, where we're looking at non-duality under the auspice, an umbrella of Divine Mother reality, like Shaktism it's called, and went through a whole series of charts about that. And in Portland, we've been studying the Svetashvatara Upanisad, and we're in chapter 6 up in Portland. So I'm heading up to Portland next week. So get ready, Portland, for brush the snow off of your hats and come to class, because you've had a snowy period recently. And we're going to plunge into chapter 6, which is the final chapter. So we have to catch up a little bit here in San Francisco and take some slokas today, which will lead us on in Svetashvatara's path of Dharma, the way he proposes it. He was a great grandsire of a lineage that he left behind and passed it on to his children and so forth, down through thousands of years. These teachings came until they came to us really uninterpolated, untrammeled. They're just as pure as can be. When you read a sloka like that or chant a sloka like that, then you immediately bring Svetashvatara himself into your presence. And his subtle body is right in there. What'd you say? I think I heard my words echoing through the long course of time, all the way down to the present time. You see, because everything is contained in an eternal moment. The past, present, and future is not the most enlightened way to look at things. That's linear. But if you think about the eternal moment, that's the way the yogis and yoginis would look at things, you see. Everything is going on in one moment, rising and falling, and that rising and falling is happening eternally. But the consciousness itself is never in time. Only mind and brain and body and nature, those things are in time. See, but consciousness itself is not in time, so you withdraw that from time. That's what you do when you meditate. And which actually starts us off in the first sloka. He says here at the top of chapter 4, "May the Divine Being, who though himself colorless, gives rise to various colors in different ways with the help of his own power, for his own inscrutable purpose, and who dissolves the whole world into himself in the end, may he endow us with good thoughts." So dissolve the whole world into himself in the end is why I put up this chart. Because dissolve is that key word that we're beginning to work on. It's also the key word in the new book that SRV has just put out, which I brought you copies of. This is just hot off the presses, as they say. It's a few days old. It's called Dissolving the Mind Stream. It's a second in a series of small books that I'm putting out. There'll be 3 or 4 books of this size, which have charts like this inside of them. And this particular one goes into that yogic and Vedantic way of treating the subject of mind and how to dissolve it. Now, you'd think dissolving the mind would be something like liquefying the brain or something like that, but what it is a practice you do every day that proves to you that you're not the mind. It also proves to you that the mind is the projector of all things, that even nature has come out of mind by the power of thought. See, so this microphone, this musical instrument, and so forth were my thoughts, and they were formless before they took form, you see. So power of mind brought them into being, just like an inventor would bring something out of his consciousness into being. Well, that's the way they look at origins of things. That is, they don't believe that God is the cause of something or that nature alone can do it. In India, in the all-mind schools, they think it's really this intermediary. Nice word for that is matrix, you see. We're probably a word that most of us can identify with because of the popular Hollywood movie series, but a matrix is something that is an intermediary for something else. So mind would be the intermediary for God, Brahman, and also acting in accord for the world, which is the other end of the spectrum. So everything most subtle, most causal, beyond form is there in Brahman, and everything most condensed, most solid, most concentrated, and full of matter, you see, is there in the world. And so in between that is mind with its thinking process. So you have these two poles, and then you have this matrix in between. So they begin to study the mind. Even Western scientists recently have studied the mind in that way. James Jeans at the turn of the century said, well, we studied nature, and at first it just looked like a form-producing mechanism. You see, plants, rivers, so forth. But then we studied it deeper, and it began to look like a thought. Nature acts like a thought. So that's how you begin to trace nature, its source. Not back to a big bang or to some void or some emptiness or some random coincidence that happened, but that it all came out of your thinking process. Water, liquidity is a thought, you see. Earth, solidity is a thought. Tree is a thought. And these thoughts are coming from thousands of matrices. Combined mind, they call it collective mind, is billions and billions of minds putting together their thought power to hold worlds in space and time. So we just chanted Vedanta Siddhanta Niruktiresha Brahmaiva Jivaham Sakalam Jagadcha Akanda Rupa Stite Eva Moksha. So Sakalam Jagadcha, Sakalam with time, Jagad the world. All of this is Brahman. See? So if you trace it right, you can prove that all of this here is Brahman, but you're going to have to go through the matrix of the mind to see that. Otherwise, if you're just studying in a physical way, physics and so forth, outwardly, you're not going to be able to make those subtle connections. They're not going to occur to you. And you're going to have to, as Christ said, get an inner life, as he told the fisherman along the river. Get an internal life. I want to give you that. So that's the great connection back to this mind, manas, with its thinking power, with its intelligence, with its penchant for pleasure and pain, which is itself a great key to find out, and most importantly, its ego complex, where it tends to separate itself out from the whole, cut itself a separate image. So when we say we want to cut ourselves in the image, we're talking about an involution act. When we say we've been cut in the image of nature, we're talking about evolution. So evolution has happened, apparently so. Now we have to turn everything back in on itself and make involution happen, and we don't want to wait 4 billion years for that. We want to do it every morning in meditation. Why? Because we do it every night in deep sleep. We go formless. So we can do it. The mind can empty itself. When it goes into deep sleep, it does. Only it doesn't do it consciously then. So therefore, what's the next best thing? So the next best thing is to render it empty on purpose. I will empty my mind while I sit here, and this time my third eye will be open and I'll watch it go empty. So I'll know who's doing the emptying, what the emptiness is, and I'll know what a process is. And then I'll also find out that I'm not a part of that process. I'm the activator of that process. I'm not the matrix, I'm the operator of the matrix. And there's your key to enlightenment. Eva moksho. Brahmadvitiye shrutayaha pramanam. See, so it looks like two, but I'm rendering it into one. See? And there's because Brahmadvitiya, Brahman is one without a second. Brahmadvitiya, read my Sanskrit lips, see. One without a second means Brahman is alone exists. None else exists. So all of this then has to be Brahman, and I'm just misreading it. Misreading it through what? An unclear matrix. I'm looking through a glass darkly. That's how they put it, see, in the Western poetic circles. Looking through a glass darkly. So I'm taking a crystal, from my eyeglasses, and it's causing all sorts of opaque permutations and impurities in my eyesight. That's why Christ said, somebody wrote me yesterday and said, what's the underlying meaning to Holy Mother's teaching, do not find fault with others. So I wrote back and told him, humility is the first meaning, and the second meaning is, the witness. You witness all the imperfections inside of yourself, and you see them in others. So you have to get rid of the imperfections inside of yourself, and then you'll see others as Atman too. See, it's not going to work unless you do that purification process. So, with those words, he talks about dissolving the mind stream. He says, for his own inscrutable purpose and with his own power, he dissolves the whole world into himself at the time of dissolution. May he endow us with good thoughts. So here's, in this chart, if you were to look at it, and some of you have seen it before, it is the main chart of this new book called Dissolving the Mind Stream. Now, if you want it put in a traditional way, we could read that sloka right here. The classic and comprehensive meditation in yoga and Vedanta dissolves the elements into the senses into the subtle elements into the prana into the mind into the great mind, and the great mind into the word, Om. Find Om in yourself. And dissolve that self into the great self called Brahman. So you follow the arrows, see. He said dissolve the elements into the senses, dissolve those senses into the subtle elements, dissolve those into the prana, the life force, dissolve the prana into the mind into the great mind, and the great mind into Om, the Word. In the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was God. So as far as any beginnings go, any origins, that was the great matrix, you see, Om, the Word. And then mind came out of it, and it began to think. And as the thinking process went down, trickled down to different stations, down means out, then it solidified more and more until finally you had the 5 elements of earth, air, fire, water, and ether. And that's how everything came out of mind. And now you have to look at the original face, your original face, not all these many faces you've created out of the thought process of your mind, but turn and look for the original face with a single eye, if thine eye be single, and then dissolve it back in step by step. And you practice this in meditation every day. It's a practice you can do. Dissolution of the mind. So, if you begin that practice, then you may hear the sound of the word, Om, humming at the root of your being. And if you come upon that word Om in your deepest meditation as your practice, then you can dissolve that. You'll find that that's inside of yourself. That's what the quote says. Find Om inside of yourself. So that great hum is coming from your great self, which shows that everything is within you. All knowledge is within you. All potential is within you. The great self is it. You see. Call that God if you will, but you don't need to assign a name to it. Then you'll find yourself, Atman, the individual self, dissolve that into the ocean of Brahman, which is all about and all infusing everything. See? So you've gone from earth, samsara, pragbara, all the way into the ocean of Brahman, Kaivalya pragbara. This is a stream of souls that are going towards, evolution style, towards the earth, getting caught there, millions of souls, and with their ancestors, in cyclic fashion, doing a loop amongst these first few things. They go into they go into dream, they go into deep sleep, they come back out, they go back to a waking state, and they never make it in deep enough to know their own mind, what to speak of know the great mind of God. Mahat, it's called. You have a mind, God also has a mind. You're not your mind, God isn't his mind either. In fact, God isn't even a he. It's very hard to speak of Brahman, God, Almighty Father, Allah. It's very hard to speak of that one indivisible being. But we have to borrow words to do so. But the point being that that great being is not its mind either. Its mind is also a matrix for what it does. That's what you call the Trinity. See? Trinity is there producing, in a very balanced and sattvic way, all these possibilities for worlds that lie within it. But when you come down to Om and to this great self, you'll find worlds begin to disappear. Sri Ramakrishna made that comment. He said, the further I went towards God, the further away I went from the worlds. The worlds of name and form disappeared. Sort of like deep sleep tonight. No self, no cell phone, no children, no money, no cars, nothing. You just went into a completely, as it were, comatose state. See, but you didn't have your single eye open when you went into that state tonight. Maya just covered you over. See, and you went to kind of an insentient place, a vacuous place. But now you want to try and take your consciousness with you. So you will see how the process is undergone, how this manufacture of the mind process occurs, and how its dissolution occurs in reverse. These are all pretty much the 24 cosmic principles, if you've studied them in Samkhya science, with a few additions here and there. So if you know the cosmic principles, then you're born lifetime to lifetime in knowledge of how the Divine Mother does this, projects this great worlds, all these worlds. Why you people go into the realm of the ancestors and come out. Why the dinosaurs live and then disappear, you see, and so forth and so on. All of those things happen in an eternal moment with no birth and no death accompanying it. It's all an eternal verity, like waves that just rise off an ocean and fall, and the ocean never changes. You see, it just holds the change, but itself never changes. If you're born in each lifetime with that knowledge, then you're a free soul wandering about the worlds of projection, and you look at everything and you see with that single eye. You know the inner process of what brought it there. You can look at your baby being born, or you can look at your grandfather dying. You can look at a supernova in space. You can watch a sun explode, and you'll know where everything's coming from and where everything's going, without the slightest trepidation or doubt accompanying your mind. And then they call that a knower of the cosmological process. And of course there's more to know then. You want to know more about that self which everything is getting dissolved into. So talk about a sloka that's pregnant with wisdom. Right at the top of the 4th chapter, there you have it. That divine being, though himself colorless, gives rise to various colors. So the white light of Brahman, which reflects through a prism, a matrix called a crystal, which is the mind, and turns into various colors. See, the poet Shelley had a poet much like that. The pure white light of eternity, which filters down through the mind, and it gets stained by the colors of the prism of the mind, and then it turns into worlds. But beyond that prism of mind, there's this pure white light, which is unaffected. So that's pretty much what is being said here, 4,000 or 5,000 years before Shelley put it in a poem. See? So, with the help of its own power, that's Shakti, and for its own inscrutable purposes, none knows what God thinks or how God uses his mind, very rare to know God's mind, then dissolves the whole world into himself in the end, and then brings it forth again in that evolution process. We call evolution, but we would look at it as a sankalpa process. The mind wakes up, projects, goes to sleep, and withdraws everything, doesn't it? If your mind is in the mix between consciousness, intelligence, and the world, then it's waking up to things, bringing them into manifestation, falling asleep, and taking them into emptiness. So it's constantly coming and going. See, it's dreaming. It's waking up and falling asleep, waking up, falling asleep, and as it does, it projects and withdraws everything. If an individual mind does that, how much more would the cosmic mind be doing that, with how much more greater power than the individual mind? So that would be matrix with a capital M, the Mahat. See? The great mind, the cosmic mind they call it. Well, if you want to put it this way, since it's Sri Ramakrishna's birthday, we'll take a quote from him, an idea from him. He says, when a sugar cube dissolves into hot liquid, it first breaks into half, then into small chunks, then into granules. Finally, there is nothing left but sweet liquid. Similarly, when the mind moves towards authentic meditation, it first contemplates the dual world, then the many teachings, then the living particles of its own intelligence, and finally enters full immersion. What remains then is one blissful, indivisible, homogeneous mass of pure conscious awareness, like a good cup of tea. So a sugar cube breaks into two. You see, the mind starts to ponder, why all this duality? Why can't my eye remain single? Why can't my mind remain unscattered, collected all the time, peaceful? Why can't I have peace of mind? So it has to contemplate the process of duality first, the sugar cube in two. And then it will enter the next step, which it begins to see that everything's made of particles. Now science has found out that physical matter is made of atomic particles, but the Dharmi, the one who follows the Dharma, finds out that everything is made of intelligent particles. And these interest him or her much more, because they're as much or more infused with power than the atomic particle is. You know what happens when you split an atom and how much power you can get out of it. What if you split one of these atoms of intelligence? You found a way to do that. Instead of an explosion that's destructive outwardly, you'd have an implosion, which is creative inwardly. You see, it begins to show you where all this power is stored. Not just one atom of atomic power, but a whole ocean full of atoms, see, of atomic power. So from the atomic to the atmic there's one sloka in the Upanisad that says they meditate on that being who has created the world out of chaos. So the idea in Vedanta is that when the mind begins to think, the gunas are active, you see. Guna means slothfulness, balance, and restlessness. Restlessness would be activity. See? Immense activity streams forth from this great mind. On thousands of levels, billions of minds, endless activity going on, vibration. And then, it can also be withdrawn back into just one mind. So that's what you want. If I and I be single, then you're at the level of one mind. And the mind isn't scattered anymore, and you can enjoy the peace that passes all understanding. You can be in that samadhi-like state. No matter, even if you're walking out in the world, you'd be peace, you see. You bring light everywhere. So this is a way of practice that the aspirant can undergo that is in keeping with yoga, in keeping with Sankhya, and in keeping with Vedanta. That is, it has the 24 cosmic principles in it to guide you, so you know what's being dissolved, air, earth, fire, water, and ether, tasting, hearing, touching, seeing, and smelling, odor, flavor, visibility, tangibility, audibility, the pranas that are flowing, in you, and the psychic prana that's carrying thoughts in your mind. You know exactly what it is that's being dissolved at each stage of the dissolution process. So it puts you in charge, puts you in the know. Who else would it put in the know? Who else is supposed to be knowing? Is someone going to do this for you? Walk up to you on the street one day and say, "Oh, come here, I'll dissolve your mind for you." So you're going to have to do this yourself, because you are the one that projected it. So you're the one that has to learn to withdraw it. You know who the creator is, Lord Brahma. Everyone likes creation. You know who the preserver is, Lord Vishnu. Everyone loves even more preservation. Once the thing gets created and grown and matured, they like to keep it the same, you see. And then you know who the destroyer is, Lord Shiva. But nobody likes Lord Shiva that much, see. They don't want to see it destroyed. They have a fear of destruction. Why? Because destruction is not real. It's just a return to creation on one level of thinking. But then it's also just a return of your awareness of non-duality, that the creation, preservation, and destruction process was all a temple in a teapot, tempest in a teapot, you see. And it's going on constantly inside of two hands that's holding the teapot. One's called projection and the other's called withdrawal. And that two hands belong to Divine Mother of the Universe, whose creation all of this is. And so in that way, then you want to master a process that will take you to see her. You want to pay a visit to the great Mahadevi, to the great Vakdevi, to Kali, to Durga, to Saraswati. And then you can fully avail yourself of knowledge of how the powers of Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva work, so if you want to put it in that way, how the Trinity works. And then what to speak of matrices, you will go beyond even that great matrix and find all of that inside of your own self, and find that self in the ocean of Brahman. Sri Ramakrishna said, like a fish that's been released from a goldfish bowl, you see, into a lake. It's just gone around in circles, see, for years, if it lives that long. All of a sudden one day somebody just says, "Be free," and dumps the contents of that goldfish bowl right into a big lake, and then all this limitless, see, space of consciousness, if you will, is there to be explored. So that's how the meditator thinks as he graduates each set of fives. Did you notice how contemplation process is happening? 5 elements, 5 senses, 5 pranas, 5-fold mind. If you add cosmic mind to the Antakarna, it's a 5-fold mind. So everything comes spilling out in 5s. So it's not that hard to, it's like Divine Mother said, "Here, I'll make it easy for you. I'll just do it in 5s." Then you'll inspect your list and say, what am I missing? Oh, ether, I'm missing ether. I thought there were 4 elements. But oh no, there's 5 elements. And actually ether is space, and space has got 5 divisions. Another 5 comes out, isn't it? Bhutakasha, Pranakasha, Manakasha, Vijnanakasha, or Chittakasha, and then Chiddakasha, space of spirit. So all of a sudden that 5, the 5th of those 5 turns into another 5, which draw me inward in this dissolution process, you see. So I can dissolve this world back into my ancestors. I can dissolve my ancestors back into the gods and goddesses. I can dissolve the gods and goddesses back into the rishis, the great seers, and I can dissolve them back into the Trinity. And then I dissolve the Trinity into myself. So, yes, it all exists within you. It's not just a New Age cliche. It's literal, we mean that. The great self holds everything. So much so that Vivekananda came among us and said, there is no God, there is no devil, There's just the great self. Make an offering of that great self, of yourself into the great self. Om Tach Nayo Ravrinni Mahe Gatung Yagyaya Gatung Yenu Pataye Daivi Swastarastu Naha. One of the great peace chants. May we make a great offering of this small self into the great self. May we always delight in this offering. That is, may everything we do in this dissolution process be delightful. It's not like, oh, I have to draw the 5 elements into the 5 senses. What a drag, you see. I tried to withdraw earth into water, and I just got mud. But you missed the point, you see. This is an offering you do with delight, because you're going to the source of all of this. The source means bliss, where rolled the stream of knowledge, truth, and the bliss called Ananda, which followed both. So what the Dharmi, what the meditator is looking for is this great ocean of Ananda, bliss, which happens to be the last name of hundreds and thousands of beings have named themselves Ananda. It's just as an aside, you see. Don't try and deliver a telegram to them. See. Is Mr. Ananda here? Half the world will stand up. The whole world of seekers will stand up and say, I'm Mr. Ananda. I sought bliss and I found it. See? And I did it through this process. In one way or another, anyone who's meditating is doing this process. See, basically, you could say, what are some of the positive ramifications of dissolving the mind stream? It might have some very strong philosophical and cosmological ramifications, but there also might be other things that happen, like is instanced in some of these beautiful songs. Iti vadata tulasidas shankar shesha muni manaranjanam. Iti vadata tulasidas shankar shesha muni manaranjanam. Mama hridaya kanjani vasa kuru kamari kaladala ganjanam. Mama hridaya kanjani vasa kuru kamari kaladala ganjanam. Shri Ramachandra kripalu bhajamana aruna bhava vayadaruna. So if I dissolve the mind stream, what am I dissolving? This poet, Tulsidas, humbly makes this request. Sri Ram, kindly come and dwell forever in my heart and dissolve all unworldly desires that are residing there. What are you dissolving then? Even put all this aside. If you don't want a cosmological makeover, see, you don't like cosmetics, and put it all aside, you see. And just say, I want to dissolve the impurities in my mind, all the unworthy desires that are lurking there, you see, lurking in my mind, waiting to spoil my bliss, my truth, my bliss, my knowledge, my stream of consciousness, waiting to spoil those in any given day, at any given moment, at any given state of mind. So dissolve those things. Think of it that way. Or, if you want, you think of it in this way too. Because many great expressions have been written around such realizations. Hridi kamalasana bhajamana dharana, Hridi kamalasana bhajamana chitar charan dekho shanta mone prema nayane aparupa priya darshan aparupa priya darshana chidananda rase bhakti yoga veshe chidananda rase bhakti yoga veshe hare chiramagan hare chiramagana chintaya mama manasa hori chidgana niranjana. You heard the word so many times, you see, chid and manasa, mind, chid, spirit, and chidananda, the bliss, see, of realization. So there's one, this Trilokyanath Sanyal, he's called, wrote that song. He's talking about, O mind, meditate on the ever peaceful, all eternal consciousness absolute. What incomparable radiance is there? How fascinating is that form? How dear is that form to all devotees? Worship the holy feet in the lotus of your heart and imbibe heavenly love. Oh, what a matchless sight that is. Overpowered with devotion, immerse yourself forever in the one who is pure knowledge and pure bliss. So you could think of the dissolution process as immersion. See? Dissolution sounds a little bit too scientific to me, maybe too scary. See? I'm going to go away when I dissolve myself, you see. But you're the one that's doing the dissolving. How can you go away? You're immersing yourself in the ocean of conscious. Chidananda Rupa, you see. And you're singing that as you do so. So you're making an offering. Tatsnayora vrinnimehe gatum yogyaya gatum yenupate. I make a profound offering of myself into the ocean of consciousness, which is my very nature. I'm the one that's dropping the sugar cube in to the tea. I'm the one that's drinking it at the end. It's all me, me, me. I. And it's not the small I either. There's the small I right there, ahamkara, ego. That's what caused, from there on out, everything to take a separate form. And you have to dissolve everything back to that ego. That's going to be a stump in front of the mansion of God. Sri Ramakrishna called that. He said, jump the stump. It means you get in front of the mansion of God, and there it is waiting for you to enter, but there's a big stump blocking the door. That's ego he's talking about. So whether you talk about it as a gross, arrogant ego, which sometimes in the West we think about it, but they're thinking about it as part of that cosmetics that you smeared on your face, you see. See? You took on an ego at one point, and that caused all your problems. See? That caused everything to solidify. That caused you to dance like a marionette at the hands of Mahamaya. You see, helpless, birth to death, death to birth. So when you meditate, find yourself to that mind, and then find the ego inside the mind, and then look at that ego and say, you look like an onion to me. You're all peelings, no center, see, and you make me cry. So I'm going to get rid of you. I think I'll dissolve you into the great soup. You see. This onion's going to get clarified first, then it's going to get dissolved into the great soup of Brahman. You see. Just like a sugar cube. It's all going to be a tasty dish for me when I get done. I will drink the ocean of awareness when I'm ready. See. I'll quaff the entire thing. Poison and all. So dissolution of the mind stream is very powerful process that you can engage in every morning when you sit. I have one student that writes me often. In fact, the back of this book that's called Dissolving the Mind Stream says, has something to say about that. That I practice every day this dissolution of the mind stream. Every morning I sit and dissolve earth and air and fire, water and ether back into my senses, and my senses back into the subtle senses, like my dream senses back into, the prana, and the prana back into the mind. I actually go through this step by step. Took me about 45 minutes the first time, and now I can do it in about 10. See, it's sort of like becoming aware of the kingdoms of heaven within you. Because these are steps, you see, these are, the seers have all said this is pretty much what everything is made of inside of you. These are your three bodies, gross, subtle, and causal. So you have to learn about your bodies so that you can dissolve them back to their source, you see. You can get to a formless place when you're done with those bodies, or when those bodies become decrepit. This clinging attachment to the body is the fifth and lowest hell. Abhinivesha, it's called in Sanskrit. It's one of the great kleshas, or obstacles, clinging to the body as if it were the only station that consciousness could go to. How ridiculous. Look how many stations consciousness goes to. From the gross to the subtle to the causal and all the way to the ultimate, and back again. In one 24-hour period called waking, dreaming, and deep sleep, you've visited all of them. Did you see them go by, though, when you visited them? So this is the point. You highlight each step, not like a kid at the top of a high school stairs jumps the whole thing with a skateboard, you see. A lot of fun, but he never knew what all those steps were about. He does it day after day, and you never know what the middle steps are about. So you can't do that if you're a Sankhya scientist, if you're a yogi, if you're a Vedantist. You see, you have to know what all the steps are about. You have to know the kingdoms of heaven within you, because you may visit them someday in a more permanent basis, you see. Like if I pass and go to my ancestors, I have to know where I ended up. You see. Oh, I'm in heaven, you see. And I remember earth, and I know there's something beyond heaven that I should be getting to. Heaven is a very low state as far as Vedanta is concerned. Just a little more pleasure and less pain. That doesn't sound like, and streets running with milk and honey sounds like a sticky mess, whether they're made of gold or not. So there are much higher and deeper levels of consciousness, stations to occupy, that are yours, that are your own territories. So that's what Vedanta emboldens you with, you see. It supplies you with information that causes you to remember the kingdoms of heaven within you. And then you can meditate on them, and then you can make them show up. You know they're there, and you can traverse them. You're the intrepid internal sojourner, you see. And when you come out to earth, you know why you did, and you know you're going to leave it too. And you can do it consciously. The whole thing is done consciously. So these words, this process, this chart, and this music I've sung all come out of one sloka. And I could go on, but since I see that you're all trying to stay awake real hard, maybe I've hammered the point in hard enough that this is one of the great meditation processes, and anyone who meditates anywhere in any other kind of form is doing this whether they know it or not. This is what is being accomplished. This is just a very step-by-step way of looking at it that's ancient, all the way back to Lord Copula's time, when he supplied us with the 24 cosmic principles, when he did his homework and said, this is what the inner worlds consist of. You know what the outer world consists of pretty much. You go to it every day. Do you want to know what your inner world consists of? Do you want to know what Christ meant by the kingdoms of heaven within you? Do you want to know how many chambers there are in God's mansion? Or is that just going to remain a sort of off-the-cuff statement to you? See. Do you want to know? Well, as if to put more impact on it, he says in the second sloka, that, with a capital T, means that imperishable being itself is fire. Isn't it? That is the moon. That is also the starry firmament. That is Brahman. That is the waters. That is Prajapati. Prajapati means the teacher of the gods. He teaches the gods. That's how masterful and high a soul we're talking about, say in the form of Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, or Lord Jesus, or Lord Buddha. See, those are the Prajapatis, as it were. They come and they teach all these souls. By their very presence they teach them. Commentator says, this mantra is very important. It shows the various gods that you meet with in the Vedas. That's why I put up this chart. Thou art the man, thou art the woman, thou art the youth and the maiden too. Thou art the old man who totters along, leaning on the staff. Thou art born with faces turned in all directions. There's just a few. Thou art the dark blue butterfly, and the green parrot with red eyes. Thou art the thundercloud, the seasons and the oceans. Thou art without beginning and beyond all time and space. Thou art the one from whom all the worlds are born. Do the Upanishads lack poetry? With words convincing in both profundity of wisdom and beauty and poetry, they can tell you about your eternal nature, your eternal internal nature. And then they'll show you the external, how the external has come out of the internal. They want you to know that the two aren't sort of randomly mixed or separate somehow, that one has come from the other. Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamadachate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. How many Purnas do I have to use in one sentence to convince you that everything is full, full, full? Not empty, empty, empty. You got to the stage of emptiness by getting rid of lust, anger, envy, greed, jealousy, fear, pride, delusion. Make it empty of that. Then I'm happy with emptiness, you see. But then that emptiness will be blissful, and that bliss will be the fullness of Brahman. Purna, Purna, Purna. In other words, from the infinite Brahman, the finite has come. Yet, being infinite, only infinite remains. The finite, too, is eternal. I mean, 4,320,000,000 years is a long time. But if it recycles again, another 4 billion, and then another 4 billion, then you've got a bunch of cycles connected to each other like hoops. Then you know what eternity is, even inside the physical. You still remember your ancestors, right? Still remember your grandfather, people who have passed into the formless realm. You still remember them. There's still thoughts in your mind. They might as well be a presence there. They visit you in your dreams. I was saying hello to Lex Hickson just 2 nights ago, the founder of our association here. We were laying around together and talking. See? Was that my own dream I fashioned? Because there were things that he said to me that I wouldn't have thought of to say. So there are presence, there are worlds within you. See, they're trying to tell you kind of what they're made out of, at least give you the skeleton type, you see, because this may be the basic 24 cosmic principles, but look at how many things are possible in water, how many things are possible in fire, how many things are possible in suns and moons, see, how many things are possible in teachers, Prajapatis. It's all infinite, infinite, infinite. It's all Purnamida, Purnamidam. It's all full, full, full. And it never ends. Talk about the never-ending story. Vedanta has a never-ending story for you. Now here is just a quick mention and view of that beautiful second and third sloka. You are the green parrot with red eyes and so forth. You see that there are things such as Chandra, Surya, the moon and the sun god. There's the 7 rishis, Sapta Rishi. There's a picture of Swamiji when he was previous to his lifetime. See, he's one of the Saptarishis, Vivekananda. There's Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva right at the middle. That's the cosmic mind, right? Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. So if you want to put it in terms of cosmological principles called tattvas, or put it in terms of deities, deity yoga, then you can do that. And you can look at it either way or at both. I prefer to look at both. I like everything full. Purna, Purna, Purna is the... And there you see Ganesha, elephant-headed god. There's Prajapati, the great teacher, mentioned in that sloka. That is Prajapati. And Indra, Agni, Vayu, and Varuna, who are those? Let's see. There are these 5 elements. God of earth, God of fire, God of water, God of air. They're deities. So they have a personification too, especially in their inner subtle way. Odor, flavor, visibility, tangibility, audibility, you see, are the subtle elements. So you have those in dream tonight, right? Have you ever gone into dream and created a land and seen a sun in the sky and built a fire and cooked food over it? And basically that's earth, air, fire, water, and ether in your dream, you see. And who put that together? Now if you're a very reverent person, you're going to say, thank you, Indra, thank you, Agni, thank you, Vayu, thank you, Varuna, for supplying air, earth, water, and fire, and ether to me, see, so that I could play with them in my dream. Now, quick, dissolve them so I can wake up. See? I'll wake up into dream number 2 now. As Ramana Maharshi said. I'll leave my dream tonight, dream number 1. I'll wake up back up to the waking state, which is dream number 2. That's where everything went more solid. It wasn't quite so solid in my dream, so I was actually pretty close to a formless state, wasn't I? But now I went the other direction, back out, and solidified everything even more, right down to the atomic particle, you see, that's congealed into objects. Now I'm in the realm of objects. This whole setting, of course, based on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, because there's Krishna and there's Arjuna. And all the divine powers are there manifesting out of Lord Krishna. He's that great teacher, the avatar. And there on either side of the battlefield you see suras and asuras without number. That is the gods and goddesses. So when you talk about the immanent and transcendent reality, you're talking about Govinda. Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsa Chanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadguru Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangu Rangayati Girim Yat Kripatam Aham Vande Paramanandam Madhavam Govindam Govindam Maripurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Maripurusham Tamaham Bhajami. And on, this beautiful excerpt out of the Krishna Dhyanam. That's at the beginning of the Gita. If you've picked up a Gita, usually at the beginning you'll see the Dhyanam, the meditation in a few pages, and you can read that. Actually. Beautiful, beautiful words. Yam Brahma Varnindra Rudra Maruta Ha Stunvanti Devoishtavoy Vedai Sangapada Krama Padashanoi left out Dhyan Avasthita Vatatena and so forth and so on. This beautiful scripture that says we offer our salutations to the Supreme Lord, Sri Krishna, Vishnu, so one of the Trinity again that we're talking about. So the Gita Dhyanam, beautiful words that come out of that, beautiful songs, music. Govindam, Adi Purusham. Adi, the original Purusha, the original soul, you're singing to. So that's what you're talking about when you see something like this, and that's what Arjuna got a chance to look at in that chapter of the Gita called Vishvarupa Darshanam. Basically, profound and reverent prostrations to the son of Vasudeva, the destroyer of negativity, the source of bliss for Devaki, the universal teacher, Madhava, the sweet, enticing one, the essential source of existence, whose undying love causes the mute to speak and the lame to traverse mountains. Eternal salutations. Govindam Adi Purusham. So you're talking about the immanent and transcendent reality. You're talking about a vision like that. Or as this sloka here, with hands and feet everywhere, with eyes, heads, and mouths everywhere, with ears everywhere, it exists, pervading everything in many universes. And higher than this personal Brahman is the Supreme Brahman, who attracts intelligent souls towards the highest goal of liberation. Without feet, yet it goes everywhere. Without eyes, it sees everything. Without ears, it hears all. Though this impersonal Brahman is changeless, it seemingly grows beyond its own nature to formulate the objective universe. By the grace of the personal God, the aspiring soul becomes free of sorrows and transcends all desires. I know this omnipresent one, who is concealed in the hearts of all, and by knowing which one becomes free of birth and death. If you recognize it, it's the last sloka that we took before I arrived, when I left last time. It's sloka 21 of chapter 3. I know this undecaying, primeval, immanent self of all, who is omnipresent because of his all-pervasiveness, and whom the expounders of Brahman declare to be eternally free from birth and death. That's the sloka we finished when I last left here. Do you all remember it? If you remember that, then you're a candidate for remembering Brahman for all time, never forgetting the Almighty Father. We've had enough about the Son. Let's start concentrating on the Almighty Father so we can get back to our formless essence again. In fact, that's why all the great souls took a form, so that we could get back to our formless essence. Be thee perfect like thy Father in heaven is perfect. So, an important lesson from the exemplar, not from the Savior, from the exemplar. You want to follow the example, not end up just with the Savior and never know the formless Brahman that's inside of you. It's deep within you, to which all great souls go. And on the way they see the dark blue butterfly and the green parrot with red eyes, and they know it all to be Brahman. Otherwise you just see a pretty thing that looks like it came out of a cocoon and then got eaten by a bird. You see birth and death are there, and you know that there's horror along with the beauty. But if you know birth and death to be myths, death is an illusion, then you're going along thinking Brahman, acting Brahman, living Brahman. You are the living Brahman, and you're seeing everything as the eternal Brahman. No matter what changes might dictate otherwise. You don't take any wooden nickels in Vedanta. Nobody pulls the wool over your eyes. So then, why not end up saying, I know this undecaying, primeval, immanent self of all, who is omnipresent because of his all-pervasiveness. Is there a better mantra in English than that? You find that it's undecaying, doesn't die. It's primeval, that is, it was there at the very beginning. You can't go any deeper towards the origin of things than the primeval. You know it's immanent. It's right here, now. You can't talk about it as if it were in the past. And you know it's all pervasive. And it's in everything. It doesn't have to move, because it's already there. You can't go looking for Brahman. It was there before you had the thought, I'm going to go looking for Brahman. It was there, it was what caused you to have the thought, I think I'll seek Brahman. See, it's immanent, it's transcended, it's all pervasive. We've looked at the English dictionary and we've found every good word that could possibly be used in the spiritual science of Vedanta and used it in translation to try and convey to Westerners, English-speaking people, now all around the world, how important it is to understand the essence of your very being, and how important it is to dissolve it back every day to that essence. Don't go a day without doing this in some form. You can be walking along or driving along and see the ocean go by, instead of going, oh, what a beautiful sight, or oh, what a nice looking tree. What kind of tree is that? You didn't, there was your chance to dissolve the ocean back into you and the tree back into you, into the non-dual Brahman, to have a thought about God, but you were instead thinking about insentient nature. You were sunbathing instead of praying to Surya, whose light really means the light of intelligence. A billion suns in the sky, so what? We know everything's infinite. Why should I get all blown away by such mere little infinitesimal realizations when the sun of wisdom is shining within me, out of which those suns were made? See? I fashioned those suns in the universe. That's me, consciousness, living consciousness. I did that. The true I. And so you must come to know that I, so you can claim the entire universe to be your own. No one is a stranger, my child. Everyone is your own. That's Holy Mother's last words to us. Do not find fault with anyone. Find your own faults. Everyone is, no one is a stranger. Everyone is your own, my child. The last thing she said to us before she left the body. So with that kind of all-comprehensive, all-pervasive, omniscient, undecaying, primeval wisdom, know yourself and then set yourself free. Immerse yourself every day in the ocean of bliss. Until you can do that, do it in the teachings, like you've come this weekend to do. I immerse myself in 6 hours of dharmic teachings, because it's not going on anywhere out there. College, jobs. No one's talking about Brahman, God, Ishvara, sadhana, dharma. You barely hear higher intellect going on out there, isn't it? You're just hearing a bunch of zeros comes out of people's mouths, walking skeletons, uttering zeros. Or talk about money and finance and so on. Breathe life into this world by knowing Brahman, knowing yourself as that. With the remaining 4 minutes, we can take another sloka. There is a single female of red, white, and black color who is unoriginated, who produces numerous offsprings resembling herself. By her side lies one unborn male out of attachment for her, while another male, after also unoriginated, forsakes her after having enjoyed her. So that's where Vedanta starts to bring in, Upanishads start to bring in some really deep symbology that you have to know about. That one single female of red, white, and black colors, that's the Prakriti, that's nature. Everyone enjoys her, you see. But some enjoy her and then give her up. That's what the two males mean. There are two males lying by her side. One mates with her and produces numerous offspring. So the soul mates with nature and has offspring, you see. Not just children, things come out of the combination of soul and nature. But one male, having enjoyed her, forsakes her, gives her up, so transcends nature. Age-old wisdom that it was the seer or the illuminary who been there, done that, you see, who got experienced in nature, came to know nature and what it consists of, and began to transcend it by the power of its own intelligence. And as it began to transcend it, it found out that it had created it, that God was not involved in the creation process, that the mind was the creator, and that the mind was a matrix, and that you could transcend mind too. That the Word was beyond mind, and beyond the Word was the Atman, and beyond the Atman was the ocean of Brahman. These are all uncharted territories for most beings. So the Upanishad cleverly and very wisely inserts a sloka in here after all this beautiful poetry, gets your attention, and all of a sudden it says, oh, guess what? There's one unborn female and two males here. See? And the one unborn female has red, white, and black colors. I mean, she produces all this from the gunas. Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas are the three colors, like three threads wound on a spool of mind. And you're going to have to unwind them. Out of pure sattva, the Mahat creates. Out of Rajas, the collective mind creates. And out of Tamas, the individual mind creates, generally speaking. In other words, did you know that you chose your parents? Did you know that you chose your gender? Did you know that you chose this world to come to? That was all your choice prenatally, before you got into the body? So if you did that out of Tamas, you did all the choosing out of Tamas, then you wound up in a situation that wasn't exactly favorable. See? But if you were a wise soul and you knew this process, you knew as you came down the ladder of the 24 cosmic principles that you were going here, then you kept your mind concentrated as you chose. See? That's all described in this book, last chapter. Dissolving the mind stream is dissolved in the first 5 chapters, or is rather elucidated in the first 5 chapters. But in the last chapter I give you an actual guided meditation of how a soul comes out of the third eye and into this process, as if you were doing it yourself. See? You see these gods, you commune with them, you take their blessings, you descend further and further, come further and further out. See? So in that 6th chapter you'll find that guided meditation on how to come out. That is, once you've dissolved, how to reform in the right way. You know what Swamiji said after he gave the Dharma teachings, and we'll end here with our break. They asked him, after they heard the Dharma from him in the late 1800s, should a man be reborn then? Sounds like you're telling us we shouldn't be reborn. And instead of a classic renunciate kind of monastic answer, he said, I certainly hope a man will not be reborn, not till he can do so in full consciousness. So it kind of makes you wonder, with the millions of souls who are doing it unconsciously, where we went wrong, where the whole thing went awry, that we can't all come out of our true nature and keep our true nature right up into the fetus and look up at our mother and father and say, hi, I'm from Brahman, you see. And guess what? I've come to tell you, you're also from Brahman. We are that. So I leave you with that to ponder in our 10 or 15 minute break. Aloha, namaste. we plunge into the second half of our class in Vedanta with yogic and samkhya and Buddhistic and other great darshanas always accompanying it in the background, one great amalgam of Eastern thought which has never been separated from one another. They've always complemented each other and proven the worthy truths that have been realized by the seers over time as they each had their own age, each surfaced in this long efflux of time, as Krishna says in the Gita. And then they disappeared and another one came forward, as if waves of Dharma were also there, not just waves of water and waves of thoughts of the mind, but the waves of actual teaching principles that always kept current, as Vivekananda says. You think a great thought, it goes out into the ether and it'll have to come back and be picked up by other minds, just like any cause and effect situation. We know there are plenty of negative cause and effect situations, but we have to take stock of and emphasize the positive ones too, make sure those are utilized in our everyday life. And that's really what the next sloka of the Svetashvatara Upanisad is about, with these two charts that I'm showing together. Because in the first half, with some extensive commentary and some musical examples, we looked through the first 5 slokas of chapter 4 of the Svetashvatara Upanisad. And we were talking about the one single female of red, white, and black colors, and the 2 males, one that enjoys her and one that abandons her, as being the Purusha and Prakriti combination. And inside of that Purusha combination there are beings who get attached to Prakriti and nature and form and never find what's beyond it, as if nothing else does exist beyond it. And then there's exceptional souls who transcend nature. In yoga that's called Kaivalya. It means in order for you to get your highest samadhi, or your highest state of awareness that Christ and Buddha and others attained, you're going to have to divorce nature. You're going to have to realize that you're not a form. Nature is the form-producing matrix, just generally speaking, because doesn't mind come from nature, and brain come from nature, and body come from nature? All of it might as well be coming from nature. The only thing is that nature is twofold. And that's what flummoxes people quite a bit. They don't know that nature has a side of form and a formless side. Now, when we say a formless side, we're not talking about formless consciousness, because nature is not consciousness. Nature is matter, pure and simple, has no sentiency to it. It's the bondslave of the soul. It should be. But when it comes the other way around, and nature becomes the master and the soul becomes a slave to it, then that's called samsara. Otherwise, those beings who are trying to reverse the process of being enslaved to nature are practicing sadhana, yoga. I'm sorry, wrong way. This is samsara was there. Mixing you up further with these twos. Samsara, and then, but practices yoga, climbs the tree of yoga and begins to ascend in spiritual attainment, begins to realize that it has a formless nature that out of which everything has come, and that it epitomizes. So in that regard, single female and so forth, you have to remember that it has 2 faces. I mean, there are even songs sung about that to sort of clear up the confusion that souls have around it. Kokono Purusha, Kokono Prakriti, Kokono Shunya Rupa Re, Kokono Purusha, Kokono Prakriti, Kokono Shunya Rupa Re, Kamala Kanta Obhava Bhaviye Sahaje Pada Olore Shama Makiyama Kalore Shama Makiyama sometimes I think you're soul, sometimes I think you're nature, sometimes I think you have form, other times I think you're formless. Sometimes you're black, sometimes you're red, sometimes you're white, sometimes you're green. I can't tell what you are, this changing face of nature. So there are people who have looked at nature and, been aware of the void, that there is such a thing as a void. And that void, if it's, again, like every other problem, if it's not taken just to be physical, if there is a void that's a space that is a space of no form, a space of no objects, put it that way, then you have a space of dreamless sleep or meditation when your mind goes into a formless state, or samadhi. Those are the 3 times when you go beyond manifested and unmanifested prakriti. I'll show you a chart about that in a minute. It clarifies it more, but that song says it very nicely. Koko no prakriti, koko no purusha. Sometimes I look and I see the soul, other times I look and I see nature. Sometimes I look and I see form, other times I see formlessness. What are you? Will you tell me, Mother, what you are? Now I see, he says at the end, he says, Kamalakanta o Baba Babiye Sahajapagal, Shiva, Sahajapagal. See, now I've had it revealed to me by Lord Shiva that sometimes you're white, sometimes you're yellow, sometimes you're form, sometimes you have no form at all. I've now discovered your secret. You are sometimes male, sometimes female, and sometimes without any gender at all. So, sloka, right? One single female and one who is unoriginated, and by her side lies one unborn male and another male who, once having enjoyed her, forsakens her. So it's the symbology of the whole thing, whether it's put in a song or in a beautiful sloka. You use words that you're used to, male, female, gender, any kinds of ideas that people are used to using, but you apply them to these philosophical axioms, and you find out that nature has a side of form and a side of no form. Now you know why when people go to death, that the philosophers say there is no death, they're just going to formless nature. They haven't realized their Purusha yet. They haven't realized that you're it. The cosmic game of tag hasn't dawned on them yet. You're it. You're the, as Tantras say, you're the darling of your own worship. You've been worshiping images, you've been worshiping gods and goddesses, but you haven't ever found that you're really the darling of your own worship. You should be worshiping yourself. And then it ends with salutations to myself, who are birthless, who am deathless, who have produced all the worlds in space and time. Salutations to myself, the darling of my own worship. See? So self-realization, as you know, is really at the foundation of everything Indian. Self-realization, that term has come from India. It wants to take away everything but the self, the great self, that is, not the ego self we're talking about, that the Buddhists take exception to as far as the word, anatman they call it. Well, we call it ahamkara, ego. We're not talking about that self. We're talking about the all-pervasive consciousness, which they would call Buddha nature, or which you would call Purusha in this rendering. So know that Purusha is sentient and that nature is insentient. And know that amongst nature that's insentient, there's an insentient form and an insentient formless kind of nature. So when your baby comes forth into the body, when your grandfather or great-grandfather passes from the body, their bodies and everything that they identify with as nature is going to a formless state. And that's what sometimes even takes the soul to a formless state. That's not a good thing. The soul should always remain in its purely conscious state and watch bodies and mechanisms go back and forth between form and formlessness. That's why you practice something like that. So you'll actually see it happen. So then when it happens to you, your soul won't get dragged into samsara. So people can die in ignorance. It's just the thing. They die not knowing themselves. Again and again and again and again they do this, till they make a habit of dying in ignorance. That's called a materialist. When they come back to this earth, sensualist, hedonist, whatever, any kind of ist that doesn't know that it produced, that nature came out of it, and that this process is all within it, dies in ignorance and is swept here and there. From Koivalya, never knows Koivalya, never takes that river of awareness to self-realization. It always takes the river of samsara back into the world. Exactly what Buddha wanted out of when he wanted to transcend the realm of his ancestors. Went away from family, renounced wife, renounced castle, renounced his father and mother, king and queen, renounced the wealth that he could have had, left it all behind. Just Christ wasn't born with it, but Buddha was born with it, and he left it all behind. And in order to find a way out of having to be reborn into it again, he knew there was formlessness of a higher nature than this formlessness of a lower nature, passing back and forth from form to insentient formlessness. He wanted to pass from form to sentient formlessness, to the Purusha, as Kamalakanta sings so nicely here. And so he blazoned that path 550 years before Christ. He blazoned it. It had been forgotten, so he came back and opened it up again, took a machete and hacked it out. He could see where it was once formed, where it had become overgrown. He just espied it in meditation, went in there and started, keep putting this back, you see, just started hacking away at all these things, cut them away so he could see that pure path again that was underlying it all, and which every soul should know. And if it doesn't know it at the time of birth, it should be taught it by its parents. I mean, if the basic tenet is taught that you have a soul, and that soul is not a body-mind mechanism soul, because that's a part of nature, but that soul is a soul that's transcendent of body-mind elements and so forth, even beyond the great mind. It's higher than the gods, in my tradition. That's why there's a Prajapati to teach, right? Prajapati comes and teaches the gods, because they're all into lordship, you see. They're all into lordship, but Prajapati doesn't have anything to do with that kind of dominance, or even a benign dominance. It just teaches the pure truth of the soul to souls, so that they can awaken from their dream of finitude. My teacher over and over and over again on the podium, man is not finite, man is infinite. I can still hear his words echoing in my head, just the very way he uttered them. Man is not finite, man is infinite. You must realize your infinite nature, not become slave to your finite nature. He would emphasize that teaching over and over again, so that we'd start thinking in terms of a Purusha rather than just a twofold Prakriti, which had form and formlessness back and forth, you see. Oh, I went blank. Then I came back into form and I woke up saying, wah, wah, wah. See, when the doctor slapped me. And then I went through another life and went formless again. And it was all inside of the Prakriti, you see. I never knew my true self that was looking on, that witnessed my own birth and my own death over and over again and kept saying to me, wake up, wake up. And you know, that's the next sloka here. Sitting on two birds of beautiful plumage who are inseparable friends reside on the self-same tree. Of these, one eats the fruit of the tree with relish, while the other looks on without eating. And I was sitting here in this room next door, resting, and looking out the window yesterday and watching birds change place in the upper branches. See, one would be in the higher branch, and then another would chase that one out. He'd have to go to the lower branch, and so forth. So I was thinking of this sloka, and then I said, oh, yes, that's coming up in chapter 4. I should get the 2 tree charts out. But aside from that right now, this sloka means that there's your true self, the upper bird, and then your assumed self, your lower bird. And your true self is sitting in the top of this tree, never eats the fruits. See the fruits here of samsara? Pain is its fruit. And you might as well say pleasure also. So beings are enjoying sweet and rotten fruits in turn. Isn't it true? I mean, if you don't dictate your own destiny, and you're just at the beck and call of nature and circumstances and collective mind and ancestors and all of that happy stuff in nature, then you get dealt the hand that you have, you see. Sometimes a good thing happens to you and you're elated, and sometimes a bad thing happens to you and you're put off, you see. And this is what you suffer in Maya. So, but that's the bird that's flitting around in the lower branches, eating sometimes sweet, sometimes rotten fruits. But the bird, every once in a while, that bird on the lower branch looks up and sees that noble bird sitting in the sunshine, not eating, not moving, just in meditation, as it were. Like Swami Vivekananda, in meditation for 700 years at a time, Holy Mother said. And he's outside the body. Like a wooden statue, sits right about here, in the realm of the seven rishis, in meditation for 700 years at a time, before some great avatar convinces him to come to earth. There are songs about that too, how Ramakrishna showed up as a young child and told that rishi, you must come to earth. The arc of the world is sinking in the vain dream of pleasure and pain. We must go down there and awaken the sleeping. Come with me, come with me. Then they followed the star-strewn path. That's how the song puts it, Swami Shardananda, my teacher's teacher. Then they followed the star-strewn path. That means they came into the realm of stars. There are no stars inside of you. See? You don't look up and see a whole universe of stars. That's only here. These are physical worlds. Countless suns, moons, planets. See? So they followed that path. That means they had to come down, out from these subtle realms, kingdoms of heaven within, and hit the stars. You see, that's not coming down into the universe, which is infinite. That's not possible. This physical universe is infinite. You have to come from outside in, from inside out, and encounter the stars, like you would in meditation. Imagine Ramakrishna sitting there, everything goes away, and he's in bliss, and then he starts to become aware more and more, like this dissolution of the mind stream. He starts to follow the opposite direction, and he comes to the Mahat and salutes Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. He takes their blessings, and he comes in and to the mind. And then from the mind he comes into the realm of energy. In the realm of energy he comes into dream state. And from dream state he comes into the realm of the senses and the five elements. Then he looks up and sees the stars. The stars are all tucked back in, you see, in subtle form. Back in his dream state, back in his causal state. They all existed inside of him, not outside of him. So he was coming into the star-strewn path. So he had to behold, when he hit them, he said, oh, this is the physical universe. Now I need to take a birth. Where are my parents? See, he selected a couple on earth, and then he would be born there. It's all from inside out that it happens. The inner wisdom you use to situate yourself here. But if you don't do it consciously, then is what I'm saying. It's the tree of samsara that you're growing on. You find yourself in samsara. You die in samsara. And you never awaken unless it's in samsara. So, two birds of beautiful plumage, that means they both have the Atman within them. They're both splendid in potential. But one of them doesn't partake of samsara in the fruits. The other partakes of it. And by example, that bird who's eating sweet and sour fruits will eventually give up that kind of life and will fly to the top branch, just like I saw yesterday, and sit there in the sun, you see, admiring the view. That's the Purusha, that's the Atman, that's the great self, that's the realized soul, the luminary, the enlightened one. So, otherwise, if you want to begin to examine trees, because that's what they're talking about here, sitting in the self-same tree, the individual soul gets entangled and feels miserable, being deluded on account of his forgetting his divine nature. When he sees the other bird that is, the Lord of all, whom all the devotees worship, realizes that all greatness is there, then he is relieved of his misery. So he flies to that upper branch and takes his seat. That's his highest asana. See? If a soul like that appears here, this will be his highest asana. He'll be sitting here teaching, you see, telling you about everything that's within you. If he only has a few seconds, he'll say, kingdoms of heaven are within you. See? If you have a couple days, Kingdom of Heaven is within you, now go to Gethsemane and meditate. See? If you have a year or 2 years, then he'll take you there and meditate with you himself. So he'll trace out all of that dissolution of the mind stream stuff, you see. In whatever language he has to express it in, he'll use that. Because he's taken a birth in that country using that language, but that country and that language is not his. You want to learn all languages, you said, so you can communicate with all peoples, you see. So pretty soon you would just be able to go anywhere and talk to anyone, see. But to go anywhere and talk to anyone and tell them the Dharma, that's a great thing, you see. Because all knowledge fails in the end. Only this higher knowledge satisfies you. It's the only thing that will satisfy you in the end. So it's not so much communication, it's communion you want. Communication is the start, but communion is the end. All communication should end in communion. Darshan it's called. And that's exactly what the bird on the lower part of the tree is getting when he rises to the higher branch to have darshan with the Lord. It's put very nicely, the Lord of all, who is all the devotees worship and love, and who has all greatness within him. See? Mahima, that's true greatness. That's what we'll look at if we have time next. You see, all true greatness within. And that here. See? There's that word Shri, by the way, that we were talking about yesterday. Unlimited abundance. So the greatness of the Lord, what does the Lord, Mahima, what is the greatness of the Lord really about? Now, as far as these two trees go, the tree of samsara is a quick study, but it's not a quick habitation. If you get sucked into it, it's not likely you're going to get out of it very soon. The Buddhists say 3 lifetimes to get out of samsara, to annul your karma. 3 lifetimes. 1 lifetime to recognize that you have karma, because most people don't even think in terms of karma. You think in terms of randomness or grace, but they don't think in terms of karma. And grace takes a long time in coming, as you might have noticed. It might be very difficult to earn grace or to wait for it to happen. So you want to be out about your Father's business. You want to be out cutting down your own karma so that grace will be recognized when it comes, because you could wait lifetimes for grace, all of a sudden have it bestowed upon you, and not have the wherewithal to recognize it. Grace could hit you and not you could say, what happened? See, you have to qualify yourself for grace, and that's through practice. So cut away as many of those karmas as you can, and then say, "O Lord, bestow your grace upon me." You don't want to intensify an unclear mind. See? Because you're intensifying all the impurities in it, along with the purities, you see, with the potentials. You want to make sure that you clarify that mind and then intensify later, you see. So it's a step-by-step process. You don't want to intensify the negativities that are in your head. Get rid of those, that's your business. Then God's grace is his business, or her business. See? Bestow it upon you at the right time. But anyway, in the meantime, there's this problem of falling into samsara 3 lifetimes. 1 lifetime to recognize the karma, 1 to work it out, and 1 lifetime to live free. If you can live 1 free lifetime, then you've mastered. And that's a bodhisattva in Buddhism, or a jivan mukta in Hinduism. A bodhisattva has 10 stages of bodhisattvahood, but that first stage that it attains will be based on the fact, I lived 1 liberated lifetime. I was free for 1 life. See? Because that cements that in your consciousness, freedom. Otherwise, there's a lot of thoughts in your mind still lurking back there that could drag you back to samsara. You still have a remembrance of, habits and desires and things start creeping up on you, and samsara is on you, all of a sudden Maya is in you see. You are never in Maya, it's Maya that's in you. So get rid of it. Who said that? Swami Vivekananda. You see. You're never in Maya, it's Maya that's in you. So you must take an active role in your own spiritual awakening and get thee behind me. See, push that away. And then stand ready for what's going to happen to you next. You see, in the most clear state you can possibly manage, for the longest time you can manage it. See, it's all about perseverance and capacity and so forth. And you're going to have to put forth a great effort. The last thing my teacher said to me before he passed from the body, speaking of Holy Mothers, what she said to them, he said to me, if your ideal is high, then your effort must be tremendous. So I thought, what's my ideal? Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, Divine Mother of the Universe. Can't get much higher than that, you see. You can sit around in the wilderness with a six-pack and say, it don't get much better than this. But in spiritual life, you sit around and you say, if you're in Ramakrishna Loka, it doesn't get much better than this. So if your ideal is high, your effort must be tremendous. See, you must, therefore, attain clarity of mind and hold it for as long as you can. And guess how you do that? By doing it for an hour this morning, tomorrow morning, the next morning, with mantra, with the words of Svetashvatara, with the teachings of Ramakrishna, Jesus, Buddha, Krishna, the great souls of the past. That's how you bolster yourself up and make yourself resilient, you see, impervious to Maya's attacks. Hold yourself in a high state of mind. Hold the light, you say, right? Just hold the light. At the time of death, the Buddhists say, the Tibetan Buddhists that is that the soul sees the light, but it has a very hard time holding it. All souls see the light. So here's the test, you see, at the time of death. Can I hold that light? Can I position myself in that light? Or am I going to get my attention diverted to other worlds? You see, other worlds, kingdoms of heaven, rainbow worlds, they call them, Shambhala worlds, you see, different colors, right? Nature, manifested and unmanifested. Am I going to get my attention deviated towards them, or can I hold that light of pure conscious awareness beyond the great mind? Because I'll see it, no doubt, when I get out of the body. No matter if I'm good or evil, I will see that light, because that's the great light. Nobody can hide that under a bushel, you see. So, can I hold it? So you have to develop that capacity, that staying power, that stick-to-itiveness, they say nowadays, you see. To develop that and hold it in this life, in this meditation, in this daily life, hold the light, see. And that's practice for you, flexing the muscle that will help you at the time of old age, disease, death, and beyond. And before rebirth, hopefully, so you can choose which tree you want to climb. See. So tree of samsara, tree of yoga. Let's look at them. Tree of samsara is an easy study, as I said, but it's not easy to get out of it. You can see here at its roots, the seeds. Tamas is the seed of the tree of samsara. Tamas means slothfulness, laziness, heedlessness, indolence. How many other words can we think of? Anyone got a couple? Procrastination, that kind of thing. Inadvertence, yes. You start casting about the different schools, the words that they've chosen for that kind of lassitudinousness is one of my favorites, you see. Lassitude. That's perfect for tamas, you see. So that's the tree of samsara. You're born in tamas, therefore you're born in a tamasic womb. Your parents are tamasic. And the land you're born into is dark and dingy. And the activities you engage in, if you engage in any at all, are all sleepy and so forth. That's tamas, and life's lived in tamas. Krishna says in the Gita, those beings who are of tamasic, they fall into lower worlds, lower wombs, he says. And then those who are restlessness, they're born in the wombs of restless people. But those who are sattvic, they're born in the wombs of higher births, higher wombs, wombs with a view. And therefore, you have these three choices. Remember what we just said, right? There's a single female of red, white, and black colors. So, Rajas, Tamas, and Sattva are there in the creation. So, if samsara is the tree you're going to climb or get caught in, then you see its roots there. Its seed is tamas. Its root is the body, taken as the self. Now you can be born in a body and say, my body is not myself. My soul is myself. And then you're not on the tree of samsara, you see. But if you're born with the idea that the body is my only self, and you keep that idea and don't attenuate it, then that's called tamasic life, and that leads to samsara. The opposite of samsara is nirvana. So those souls who are born knowing that the body is not the self, they might as well be moving from nirvana to nirvana. You see, they're not. Heaven is as much here as it is there. See, for them, it's not like a location you're going to. It's a state of mind you're moving into. Hell and heaven are not locations in space. They're not up and down. I hope you realize that by now. It's a superstition, you see. Or at best symbology. But if you're looking at things as states of mind that you're moving into, then you move into a state of mind that's tamasic and it's hell. See? You live in hell no matter where you live, physically. But if you're in sattva, you're moving from heaven to heaven. You see, everywhere is heaven to you. Even hell will be heaven to you. There are souls that went to heaven, went to hell, who are great illumined souls to help the hell-born souls. Narada and others, you see. Yudhishthira had to go to hell because he said one white lie in his life. He was the most prominent man of his time, the best dharmi. Told one white lie. And when the Akashic records showed that up, the Lord said to him, you're going to have to go to hell. But you're not going to have to go to hell, you just have to pass through hell on the way to the land of the Lord. So he had to go through hell and see how everyone's suffering, you see. But he himself didn't have to suffer. So, anyway, to illustrate my point that wherever your mind is, that's your land. You see, if your mind is in tamas, you're in samsara. It's not some place that people get assigned to by some judge and then you have to go there and live out your term, like prison. It's a state of mind. Because these are mind-only schools, everything has come from the mind. I mean, if we haven't proven it by this, how much is in the mind yet, along with unmanifested and manifested prakriti, then go to Gethsemane and meditate. Find it out in whatever terminology you want to put it. But find it out. Find out the real earmarkings of it so that you can recognize it from birth to birth and from death to death. You'll be assured of it the time of your death. You don't just say, oh, I have faith in God. See, oh, I've settled all my matters with God. And then, as it were, the devil rips the soul out of your body with hot pincers, That's not going anywhere. You die in agony, or screaming, or yelling, or, depressed, or whatever. You want to have a conscious exit from your body in full faith of what you studied. And knowing that there's no God or no devil to take you anywhere. That you yourself, everything is within you. Kings of heaven are within you again. So samsara has that, has body as its root, has prana as its life force. I might as well just leave this chart up, you see, because this fivefold life force, that's potentially the trunk of samsara. Why? Because people get addicted to prana. Prana is the most addictive substance in existence, bar none. If you're addicted to alcohol, it's the prana in the alcohol that you like. If you're addicted to cocaine, it's the prana in the cocaine that you like. If you're addicted to life, it's the life force in life that you love. See? If you're addicted to your ancestors, it's the prana in the ancestors that you like. The prana is at the hub of everything, moving, and active and animate. And if you like animation and you like motion, prana is going to be your elixir. And you're not going to go any higher than it, any deeper. So therefore prana is the trunk of the tree of samsara. However, just like the body, if you know you're not the body but you're the self, if you know that the prana is just your life force and not yourself, then you can use that prana as a great Garuda bird to fly you anywhere you want inside. You can master the 3 worlds and the 7 realms by the Garuda bird of prana. That's what's taking you places inside. So it's taking you from waking to dreaming to deep sleep and back to waking. It's that prana. And it's yours. But if you haven't mastered it, how can you use it? It just flows, and then you flow with it, you see, wherever it tends to go, which isn't very high, by the way. If prana gets refined, it turns into Shakti. And then you can do marvelous things with Shakti power, you see. That's Divine Mother's own gift. She is Shakti. So that's the explanation around the trunk of the tree of prana. Now up here you see objects or its flowers, attachment or its twigs, pain and pleasure, you might say, or its fruit. The branches are the 5 senses. You see them here, actually the 10 senses, because I put smell with with excretion, and taste with procreation, sight with locomotion, touch with handling, and hearing with speaking, the 10 senses. Those are the branches of the tree of samsara. Again, if you're attached to the senses as the self, then it's samsara. If you know the senses are just tools that the self can use, then you might as well be in nirvana. See? All depends upon you and your mindset. Completely 100%. Doesn't depend on anything or anyone else. Human soul is the bird, and that's where we came from. You see in the slokas of Svetashvatara. That's why he says here that these 2 birds are sitting on this tree. Now, all of that accompanied by this quote, because these quotes are just exactly what we went through. So let's take this last quote, and it says, "Neither by weapons, by scriptures, by fire or water, nor by millions of different kinds of work can the tree be hewn down, but only by discrimination leading to knowledge of the self." So you can work yourself into a frenzy and never get out of samsara. In fact, works route you into samsara most often, unless you can do them without desire for the fruits. And you'll learn that bit of mastery. Then work is a means to an end. But by itself, hundreds and thousands of works, Shankara says, never free you. Hundreds and thousands of postures and breathing exercises, asana and pranayama, never free you. It must be done by discrimination leading to knowledge of the self. That's the only way out. They say, one goal, many paths. But actually, there's only one path. And many paths lead to it. All paths lead to the distinction between soul and nature, making the distinction between the reality and the unreal. That God is real and the world is not. That's the one path by which beings get this kind of knowledge of the self. It's covered over in other paths. Long, slow routes, you see. Discrimination between the self and the non-self is the sword of Mother Kali that cuts through all ignorance and all illusion and frees you in one lifetime. So don't wait for 3 lifetimes. The Buddhists, cut your karma out with that sword in this one lifetime and be free. Now let's look at the tree of yoga, which many of you are familiar with. In fact, I'll have Marley come up here now, and for 20 minutes she can just, in front of the camera, go ahead and tell you everything she knows about the tree of yoga that she's learned over our summer retreats. No, I'm just kidding. You can just shake your head yes if, and no if I make a mistake, okay? So, the tree of yoga with its 8 limbs, called Ashtanga, is a good comparison to the tree of samsara. Basically, you can see there, and again, starting at the roots. The roots here are not very favorable, right, Tomas? But the roots here are quite favorable. I'm sorry. There they are. Non-violence would be a good start. Must be kind to all beings, and not harm anything in thought, word, and deed. And truthfulness is there, and asteya.
That's unconsciousness?
non-covetousness, or sometimes they call it non-stealing. Brahmacharya, that is continence, and aparigraha, the non-receiving and giving of gifts, which usually stumps the Westerner because they like Christmas and so forth. But just remember that when gifts are given and received, you forget God. Basically, that's the teaching. Usually you say the teaching was, oh, there's strings attached, that's why they're telling me that. But the deeper truth is that when you're involved in commerce, you tend to forget God. So, and Patanjali's more specific in that. Actually, Vedavyas, the father of Vedanta, comments on that yama of yoga, and he says it's not just giving and receiving of gifts, but it's more that you forget your past lifetimes by that. People forget their past lifetimes by bartering and trading and engaging in commerce lifetime to lifetime. So if you were to first remember your past lifetime, that would mean a conscious death before, right? You went to death knowing yourself and knowing all the cosmic principles and so forth. And then you came into the next body, and it wouldn't even be saying something like, well, I know who I was in my last lifetime, because you were never anyone but the Atman. So you can't really know the ego. It's empty like an onion, right? So you can't go look back at your past lifetime and say, oh, I was Joe Schmo or something and lived in a certain country for a certain amount of years. And that's not what you're remembering. You're remembering the experiences you had in your enlightened lifetime that freed you from the ego, not that made your ego real. So you're looking back on a past lifetime, you're just seeing light. But if you don't have that wherewithal, you're looking back in the past lifetime and drawing a blank. That is, all the things you learned in the past lifetime are not brought forward. They're still hidden. And they may occur to you over the span of your next lifetime. They might crop up and say, oh, how fortunate, you see. How serendipitous. But no, that was something that you earned, something that's inside of you. And something that's yours that you should have claimed long ago and brought into the picture, see. So you can't go to a party and just say, oh, I was Mary Queen of Scots, in a past lifetime. That's an ego you're talking about. You have to look into your past lifetimes, and what's keeping you from doing that is giving gifts. That's how they called it back then. Here, take 100 cows. See, that's a great gift back then. See? Have 100 cows. So that kind of thing engages you in the world and makes you forget your true nature by first making you forget your past lifetimes. A very powerful teaching around aparigraha as compared to parigraha, constant gift giving. Gifts means lands and monies and diamond rings, or whatever it is, you see. You're putting yourself under the press of material, matter, prakriti, in its manifested form. So aren't you going to chase that unmanifested form into your next lifetime, looking for the seed diamond ring and unmanifested prakriti? Looking for the seed wealth, where it came from, because you were attached to the seeded wealth when you were living. You see, you have a habit around that. So you strike off that fetter, you see. Bonds that bind you down, of shining gold or of darker, baser ore. And you'd be free. Now, those are the yamas. The niyamas are purity, contentedness, devotion to God, study of scripture, and austerity. That's the roots of the tree of yoga. That's where you start. Make sure you have those 10 in order, or pretty much in order, under your belt. A lot of people are born with these. See, if they've practiced in a past lifetime, there's another reason why you want to remember your past lifetime, right? That validates what I just said. That if these things are there in you, then you know that you had another lifetime in which you developed them. If they're not there in you, then you probably are forgetting your past lifetime, and that's because you didn't practice them. Swadhyaya alone is remembrance. Remembrance about what you're hearing here and now in this book. Do you hear the words coming from my lips, you see? And therefore, that's remembrance, right? Take this seriously, memorize it, know the knowledge, realize the knowledge, come back with it, be armed with it, come back with it next time. And so this is exactly what all of this is about. Why are some people born nonviolent? Other people are born violent. See? And we all say, oh, that violence, that's horrible, that's a violent person. Look what he did, look what she did, look what they did, look what that country did to another country, you see. And everyone, eschews it, see, rejects it and so forth. But they themselves are still violent inside, you see. Violent thoughts, violent acts. Violent against themselves by being too tamasic, you see. They're torturing their own soul inside their own body by not waking up. So what is nonviolence? It's a great thing. See, it's a wide thing. It's capacious. And this only proves that if you're born with any of these qualities, that you have attained them previously. And actually that they are in the great mind. Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, you see, they're there. So if you know the great mind, then you have these qualities. If you don't know the great mind, you've forgotten these qualities. Now as you climb the tree of yoga, then you get to posture and breathing. Look what breathing was like over here. You were breathing the muggy, dense, foggy, polluted, infested air of samsara, the land of samsara. But here you're practicing breathing with an idea to elevate the mind. See? My in-breath is creation, my held breath is preservation, my out-breath is destruction. I am master of that in every breath. See? Every breath I take. But first I have to know that I breathe. You'd be surprised how many people just don't think about it. It's like saying, how many times did I blink since I came in this room? 100, 1,000, 10,000? So you have to become aware of your breath, and then you have to connect that awareness of breath to its origin, prana. And then you might be able to overcome your penchant to be born with the ancestors, because your prana is taking you towards your ancestors, and back again, you see. They want you, you want them. It's a party in heaven we're talking about. And we want to get beyond all partying, including Valentine's parties that I heard going on yesterday outside my window. So, send a Valentine to your soul. Say, be mine. See? Be mine. Be my Valentine, Atman. And maybe then you'll get some positive results. You see, something really meaningful will happen to you. Because they say in the Upanishads, who gets chosen? The Atman chooses itself. So Atman is God. Atman will choose you, but you have to be worthy of being chosen by it. That's a way of putting it. So they say if a slipper with spiders, a woman saw a spider crawl on the slipper, she's not going to put that on for days, if ever. See? So if God looks at you and sees your various transgressions, is he going to get into you and put you on like a slipper so that you can dissolve everything in space and time? Probably stay far away from you. So that Atman wants to make you mine. See? You are mine. We are one. But if there's all those impurities there, then how can it do that? See? We were talking just last night at dinner about the mind is in the way, right? Because the ego is there and the thoughts are there, mixed thoughts, negative thoughts. Get that mind out of the way, clear, and then soul looks upon soul. See? The small self just looks at the real self and says, oh, there I am. That's me. I couldn't see myself because my mind was in the way. See? And then it's all revelation from there. See? Revelation is sattva, not tamas and rajas. It's all clear. So posture and breathing, third and fourth limbs of yoga, very important. Keep your spine straight, breathe in and out, become aware of your breath and connect it back inside of you. Practice that in meditation. Use the prana to get you to a state of self-control. And that's next. Pratyahara. That's the next limb of yoga. Pratyahara, that is withdrawing the senses from their objects. Now, if you don't know what the objects are, there's the senses, and here's all what the objects are made of, thought on down, right? If you know that the object that you're attached to is a thought made manifest, and that thought came out of you, then how can you ever be bereft of the object? See, it's always yours, right? It's just that sometimes it's in manifested prakriti, and other times it moves into unmanifested prakriti. But it'll come back out of unmanifested prakriti if you want it to. Lose a football, go buy another one. Lose a child, have another one. See, whatever the case is, it's all in prakriti and it never dies. So one becomes a master of the prana and is able to control its own life. Therefore, control of senses is very important, and that has to do with inner senses too. That's the hardest part. Most people can wean themselves off of attachment to objects, but they can't wean themselves off of the thought object. That still plagues them in their mind. They'll go and sit to meditate and they'll think, what's for dinner? So food object is there. See, or, oh, I really hate that person who insulted me yesterday. So passion object is there. And they can't get rid of those things, you see. So pratyahara is a very pivotal step in yoga, that fifth stage of yoga. And if one masters it, one can concentrate, meditate, and get samadhi. That's called samyama, when you put those three together. You can concentrate. If thine eye be single, you shall know the truth. You can meditate so that you can see yourself all the way into the inner lands, to the inner lands of radiance, and therefore you'll have samadhi or bliss, where rolls the stream of knowledge, truth, and the bliss that follows both. It will all be in a natural order coming out of following or climbing the tree of yoga, mastering each limb, ashtanga, 8 limbs, ashtanga yoga. They also call it Raja Yoga, the royal road, and they also call it Patanjala, named after its founder, Lord Patanjali. So, a quick look at these 2 trees, as long as we're talking about trees. I mean, you could even sing about trees if you want. There are beautiful songs about them. You'd sing something like, Kalinam kalpataru hridayeropan korechi edeho beche paver hate durganaminechi abai pade pran shopechi ami abai Kali Nam Kalpataru, he sings. The name of Kali is the wish-fulfilling tree. Kali Nam Kalpataru. Kalpataru means the wish-fulfilling tree. So I have planted the all-powerful name of Kali as the wish-fulfilling tree in my heart. Hridaye Ropan Korechi. Hridaya means heart. That's the heart chakra right there. So I have planted the wish-fulfilling tree of the name of Kali inside my heart. Now, death cannot touch me anymore. See? Smartabhaga. See? Got it down. He's mastered death, you see. He's got eternal life. What does the word eternal life do to the words life and death? Rubs them out. They don't matter anymore. Eternal life is the only thing left. So you can sing about that tree, but if you sing about the tree of samsara, then you're probably singing something like this. Mono chalo nija niketane. Mono chalo nija Shamshara videshe The first song Swami Vivekananda ever sang to his guru, Sri Ramakrishna, when they met in that lifetime, in the 1800s in Calcutta. I hear you sing. You have a good voice. Sing for me. Mono chalo, O mind, return to your own home, your eternal abode. O mind, return to your eternal abode. Why are you going this way? Towards samsara. It says, you are a foreigner in that foreign land. Why do you roam about aimlessly with no real purpose in samsara? Samsara videshe, videsher veshe. See? The five senses and the five elements, all these are different from you, and none of them belong to you. Why have you become senseless in your attachment to others and forgotten your own true nature? O mind, return to your own abode, your eternal home. Mono chalo nija niketane. Classic. In one verse gives you the dissolving the mind stream. In one verse gives you the tree of yoga and the tree of samsara. Sing one verse of a song and be free. That's what my teacher told me when I first sang these songs to him. He smiled at me, which was rare, and he said, sing the songs of that tradition and your whole life will become a song. And then I was, over the years, to find out how much that was true. That even in just a verse of a song, all of this is contained. Even in a word, especially the word, everything is contained. In the beginning was the word, and everything was contained in it. But that word is in me. It doesn't hum somewhere else. It's humming inside your heart chakra. You can hear it here at the ancestor level. You see, the higher heavens, at the gut, at the third chakra, Manipura it's called. You can hear it humming there, but there's a barrier here, a granthi. See, Vishnu granthi is there, and you can't get through it to get to the heart chakra. These are inward implications. So to pierce through that, you see, become a lover of divine reality, and pierce through that. Vishnu will open that granthi and come, be my devotee. See. The worshippers of the ancestors go to Pitri Loka, but my devotees come to me. And the devotees of the Bur Loka go to earth. They worship objects. So some worship objects, some worship ancestors, prana, and some worship the Lord, you see, and will come to the heart and to higher and deeper levels of consciousness. All vibrating more and more subtly, more and more refined as you go inward, till bliss is there, the vibration of bliss itself. And the way you'll find happiness, contentment, peace, intelligence, those are all forms of it. But it's not till you get to that ultimate state that you just feel everything is permeated with bliss, like Ramakrishna. See? Dancing and singing, saturated with bliss. Just look into his eyes in that picture that Walt Disney Studios took and removed all the old imperfections from the 1800 photography. And now you see it as he was standing there, held up with his devotees, you see, because he would fall over if you let him go. And they took all the devotees away in the picture and just showed him standing there, close up of his face with his eyes. It's just saturated with bliss. You've never seen eyes like this. Kere Padma Palasha Lochana, Kere Padma Palasha Lochana, O thou with lotus-petaled eyes. A song Vivekananda used to sing to him. So, you can sing about trees, you can sing about samsara, you can sing about trees of yoga, and you can sing about the Kalpataru tree, you see, that I planted as the wish-fulfilling tree in my heart. It's a very nice illustration. The tree of samsara, which you want to be free of, and the tree of yoga, which you want to practice, but what you want to attain is that Kalpataru day. You see that tree of wish-fulfilling gem. You see that gives you everything just by naturally getting close to it. People used to ask Sri Ramakrishna, why doesn't God answer our prayers? And he said, well, God is the wish-fulfilling tree. He answers all prayers, but the secret is you have to go close to the tree and ask it. Then it will fulfill your prayers. So what does he mean by that? You have to go into meditation. You can't go hug a tree somewhere, hope that you're going to get your wishes fulfilled. You might be able to save one tree, who knows? But if you want the wish-fulfilling tree itself, that's inside, it's planted in your heart. You did that planting, and you're doing the nourishing. And it's growing by the tree of yoga, it's growing strong. So what you want to do is go close to that tree, then when you see it, ask what you want. And then he said, with a laugh, you see, problem is, when you see that tree, it'll be so beautiful you'll forget asking. You'll forget to ask. You'll forget what you want, because that is so beautiful, that it will be what you want. Oh, just give me the whole tree, you see. Give me Kali herself, the feet of Kali are my only refuge. See, then you'll write a song like he did. See, Ramprasad. Abai pade prana shopechi. Abai means fearless. I have become fearless. Death cannot frighten me anymore, which is the first verse. And other beautiful verses of that song and other songs that he wrote, by the hundreds he wrote, expressing his love for Kali. So we have reached the end of our time, and we've reached into the 7th sloka of chapter 2. So we did pretty good, took a nice bite out of this 4th chapter. We'll start with chapter 8 tomorrow morning, which is also live streamed, by the way, for those of you who are looking on. And it'll be about the powers of God. We'll look at this chart first, about the 6 powers, 6 divine powers and the treasures of the Lord. And with Sri Ramakrishna's pictures on it, it will be a very fine testament to his birthday, which is also this week, and which we will celebrate tonight at our puja at 7 p.m. here in San Francisco, SRV Association. So you're all welcome, your friends are welcome. And we will now adjourn with a chant and move on towards our worship tonight. Om Sato Ma Sadgamoya Tamaso Ma Joytir Gamoya Mrichor Ma Amritam Gamaya Abira Bira Mayeti Rudrayate Dakshinamukam Tenamam Pahinicham Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Lead us from darkness to light. Lead us from lower truth to higher truth. Lead us from the unreal to the real. And lead us from the illusion of death to eternal life. Reach us through and through, O Lord and Mother of the universe, with thy sweet and benign presence. Om, peace, peace, peace. May peace be unto us, may peace be unto all. Om Hari Om.